Sarah's house was simple, but full of love. She had grown up there with her father, Mr. Johnson. After her mother passed away, it was just the two of them, and they had a strong bond. Sarah always remembered how her father would make her laugh with silly jokes, and how he always made time for her, no matter how tired he was after a long day of work. Sarah was a little girl with big dreams. She loved to dance. Whenever music played, she couldn't help but move. Whether it was a song on the radio or just a beat she made up in her head, her body would sway, twirl, and spin. Sometimes, when her father came home from work, he would catch her dancing in the living room. He would smile, clap his hands, and say, "That's my girl." It made Sarah feel like the happiest person in the world. Mr. Johnson worked as a bus driver. He wasn't home much during the day, but he made sure to be there for Sarah at night. He would make her favorite dinner, listen to her talk about her day at school, and help her with her homework. They had their routine, and Sarah felt safe and loved. But things started to change when her father met Miss Emily. Sarah's father had been seeing Miss Emily for a few months before he told Sarah about her. Sarah didn't know what to think. She had always imagined that it would be just the two of them forever. She couldn't picture another woman in their home, especially someone who might try to take her mother's place. Sarah's mother had passed away when Sarah was young, and she felt like no one could ever replace her. Miss Emily was different from her mother. She was warm, kind, and tried to be helpful. She bought Sarah new clothes, decorated her room with bright colors, and even brought home a small puppy, hoping it would bring joy into the house. But Sarah wasn't sure if she wanted any of it. She felt like her whole world was changing in ways she didn't understand. At dinner one night, Sarah sat quietly while her father and Miss Emily laughed and talked. Sarah didn't feel like she was part of the conversation. She missed the old days, when it was just her and her father. "Sarah, honey, you should try to get along with Miss Emily," her father said gently. "She's here to stay, and she wants to be a part of our family." Sarah didn't know how to respond. She didn't want to hurt her father's feelings, but she wasn't ready to open her heart to Miss Emily yet. As time went on, things started to get more difficult for Sarah. Miss Emily wanted to make their house feel like a family home. She would try to get Sarah involved in different activities, like baking cookies or helping her with cleaning. But Sarah wasn't interested. She just wanted things to go back to how they were before, when it was just her and her father. One day, Miss Emily asked Sarah to clean her room. "It's getting a bit messy, Sarah," she said in her soft voice. "Maybe you can take some time to tidy it up." Sarah rolled her eyes. "I'll do it later," she muttered, wanting to be left alone. But Miss Emily didn't give up. She continued to ask Sarah to do chores, and she would remind her to study more. Sarah felt like Miss Emily was always telling her what to do. It wasn't just the chores. It was everything. Sarah wanted her space, and she didn't like how Miss Emily kept pushing for things to be different. At first, Mr. Johnson tried to stay out of it. He didn't want to get caught in the middle. But as the days went by, he noticed the tension between Sarah and Miss Emily. He felt torn. On one hand, he wanted his daughter to be happy, but on the other hand, he wanted his new wife to feel comfortable in their home. "I just don't understand," Sarah said to her father one evening, after Miss Emily had asked her to clean her room again. "Why does she have to keep telling me what to do? It's like she's trying to change everything." Mr. Johnson sighed. He didn't want to upset Sarah, but he also wanted to support Miss Emily. "Sarah, she's just trying to help. She wants us to have a good life together." But Sarah didn't want to hear it. "I don't want her help. I want things to stay the same." The tension between Sarah and Miss Emily grew. Sarah began to resent her new stepmother, feeling like she was taking over their home. Miss Emily would try to be kind, but it was clear that Sarah wasn't accepting her. The small things that Miss Emily did to try and connect with Sarah only seemed to make things worse. When she made Sarah's favorite dinner, Sarah wouldn't even touch it. When she invited Sarah to help her with a school project, Sarah refused. One evening, Sarah was in her room, practicing a dance routine to her favorite song. She was so focused on the moves that she didn't notice a cup of juice on the table beside her. As she spun around, her arm knocked it over, spilling the juice onto the new rug that Miss Emily had just bought. Miss Emily heard the noise and rushed into the room. She was upset. "Sarah, look at the mess you made. That rug is brand new. How could you be so careless?" Sarah's face flushed with anger. She didn't want to be scolded. "It's just a rug," she shouted. "Why do you care so much about stuff? It doesn't matter." Miss Emily, trying to stay calm, replied, "It's not just about the rug. It's about being careful with the things we have." But Sarah wasn't listening. She felt a lump in her throat. "You're always telling me what to do. I don't want you here. I want things to go back to how they were before." Miss Emily was taken aback. She didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry if I upset you, Sarah. I'm just trying to help." "I don't need your help," Sarah snapped, and she stormed out of the room. The following days were filled with awkward silences. Sarah kept to herself, avoiding both Miss Emily and her father. Miss Emily would try to talk to her, but Sarah would shut her down. The arguments grew louder, and the atmosphere in the house became tense. Then, one evening, everything exploded. Sarah had been dancing again, and as she spun around the living room, she knocked over a vase that Miss Emily had bought. It fell to the floor, shattering into pieces. Miss Emily gasped and looked at Sarah, her voice trembling with frustration. "Sarah, why can't you be more careful?" Sarah's anger boiled over. "It's just a stupid vase. Why do you care so much about stuff?" she shouted. "You're not my mother. Why don't you just leave me alone?" The words hit Miss Emily like a punch to the stomach. She felt hurt and upset. "I'm trying, Sarah. I'm really trying. But I can't keep going like this. I don't belong here. Maybe it would be better if I just left." Sarah stood frozen, her breath coming fast. She hadn't meant to hurt Miss Emily, but her emotions were out of control. She didn't know what to say. That night, Mr. Johnson sat down with Sarah. His heart was heavy, and he didn't know what to do. He loved Sarah more than anything, but he also loved Miss Emily. He didn't want to lose either of them. "Sarah, I know things have been hard lately," he said softly, "but you have to understand. I'm not asking you to forget your mother. I'm not asking you to love Miss Emily the same way you loved her. I'm asking you to give her a chance." Sarah looked at her father, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know how to, Dad. Everything is so different now. I don't know what to do." Mr. Johnson sighed. He took her hand. "I know it's hard, but love isn't about picking sides. It's about bringing people together. We're a family now, Sarah, and that means we have to try to make it work." The days that followed the big argument were tense. Sarah stayed mostly in her room, and Miss Emily tried to give her space. Mr. Johnson could feel the weight of the silence in the house, and he knew something had to change. He couldn't stand seeing Sarah upset, nor could he bear seeing Miss Emily hurt. He needed to find a way to bring them together. One afternoon, after Sarah had been in her room for hours, Mr. Johnson decided it was time to talk to her. He gently knocked on her door and waited for her to answer. When Sarah opened it, she avoided his gaze. "Sarah, I know you're upset, and I understand why," Mr. Johnson began. "But we need to talk about what happened between you and Miss Emily. I think it's time for us to try and make things better." Sarah looked at her father, her arms crossed. "I don't want to. I don't want her here." Mr. Johnson sighed deeply. "I know it's hard. I know this change isn't easy for you, but we need to try, Sarah. I love you, and I love her, and I want us to be a family. You don't have to love her the same way you loved your mom, but you have to try to accept her. She's not trying to replace your mother. She's just trying to be part of our life, the way she feels we should be part of hers." Sarah's chest tightened, and for the first time in a while, she felt tears well up in her eyes. don't know how," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I feel like I'm losing you." Mr. Johnson's expression softened. He reached out to gently cup her face in his hands. "You're not losing me, sweetheart. I'm here. I'll always be here. But you have to understand, we all need to make an effort. Miss Emily is new to this family, just like you are. And just like you, she's trying her best to fit in. She wants to see you happy, Sarah. She wants us all to be happy." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her father's words. She wiped away a tear and nodded slowly. "I'll try, Dad. I really will." The next few days felt different. Sarah made an effort to interact with Miss Emily more. It wasn't easy at first. Sarah still had moments when she wanted to retreat to her room, but she tried not to. One evening, when Miss Emily was cooking dinner, Sarah walked into the kitchen and said, "Can I help you with that?" Miss Emily looked up, a little surprised. "Of course, I could use some help. What do you want to do?" Sarah smiled shyly. "Maybe I can chop the vegetables for the salad?" Miss Emily handed her a knife, and together they worked in silence for a while. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As they worked, Sarah couldn't help but notice how carefully Miss Emily chopped the vegetables and how she hummed softly to herself. It wasn't the kind of humming that seemed forced. It was gentle, like she was simply enjoying the task. As they finished the salad, Miss Emily said, "You know, I'm not the best cook, but I try my best. It's important to me that you like what I make, and I really want to get to know you better." Sarah didn't know how to respond at first. She had always felt like Miss Emily was trying too hard, but now she saw it differently. Miss Emily wasn't just doing things because she had to. She was doing them because she wanted to be part of Sarah's life. "I know you're trying," Sarah said softly. "And I'm sorry. I've been so difficult." Miss Emily smiled warmly. "There's no need to apologize. I know it's hard, but I'm glad we're starting to talk." Later that evening, as the family sat down to dinner, Sarah felt a small but significant change. The air didn't feel as heavy as it had before. There were no awkward silences. They talked about their day, joked around, and laughed together. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. It was the first time in a long time that Sarah felt like maybe things could work. A few days later, Mr. Johnson took Sarah for their usual walk in the park. They had always enjoyed these walks together, just the two of them. It was a quiet time when they could talk about anything, or sometimes nothing at all. Sarah always found it comforting. This time, however, it felt a bit different. She knew her father wanted to talk, but she wasn't sure about what. They sat on their usual bench by the lake, watching the ducks swim and listening to the sound of the wind in the trees. Mr. Johnson turned to Sarah, his expression serious but kind. "Sarah," he began, "I know you've been trying, and I appreciate it. I want you to know that I don't want you to feel like you have to accept Miss Emily all at once. It's okay to take your time, but I also want you to understand that family is about more than just being together. It's about being there for each other, supporting each other, and accepting the changes that come." Sarah nodded slowly. "I get it, Dad. It's just hard. I miss how things used to be." Mr. Johnson put his arm around her shoulders. "I know you do, and I miss it too. But things can still be good, Sarah. We can still be a family, even if it's a little different than before." Sarah leaned against her father, feeling the comfort of his presence. "I think I can try. I want us to be happy again." Mr. Johnson smiled. "That's all I can ask for." Over the next few weeks, Sarah continued to make small efforts to get along with Miss Emily. They didn't always get along perfectly, but they were learning to understand each other. Miss Emily stopped trying to push Sarah into things she wasn't ready for. Instead, she focused on showing Sarah that she cared, whether that was by helping her with her homework or simply spending time together in the kitchen. One afternoon, Sarah came home from school and found Miss Emily sitting on the couch, reading a book. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Hey, I'm going to a school event tomorrow. It's a dance performance. Do you want to come with me?" Miss Emily looked up, surprised. "Of course, I want to come. I'd love to." Sarah smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She hadn't expected that invitation to feel so good, but it did. It felt like a small victory, a sign that things were getting better. Months passed, and things continued to improve in the Johnson household. Sarah and Miss Emily found ways to connect, even if they didn't always see eye to eye. There were still challenges, of course, but they were learning how to work through them together. One evening, as the family sat down to dinner, Mr. Johnson looked around the table and smiled. For the first time in a long time, it felt like everything was falling into place. Sarah was laughing, telling a funny story about school, and Miss Emily was adding her own thoughts as they all shared their day. "See, sweetheart," Mr. Johnson said with a smile, "this is what family is all about. Being together, even when it's tough." Sarah smiled back at her father, feeling the warmth of their home surround her. Things weren't perfect, but they didn't have to be. They were a family, and that was enough. Through understanding, patience, and a willingness to grow, Sarah, Mr. Johnson, and Miss Emily formed a new family dynamic. It wasn't without its challenges, but the love and effort they shared made it work. In the end, they found that family is not about perfection. It's about making room for each other, accepting the changes that come with time, and knowing that no matter what, they would always have each other